Zipper rolls out to the right, pitches off to Taylor, and Taylor's to the 20, down to the 15, down to the 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Billy Taylor scored a touchdown from 21 yards out. The crowd goes berserk. It was November 22nd, 1969. That they came to bury Michigan all dressed in maize and blue. The words were said, the prayers were read, and everybody cried. But when they closed the coffin, there was someone else inside. Oh, they came to bury Michigan, but Michigan wasn't dead. And when the game was over, it was someone else instead. 11 Michigan Wolverines put on the gloves of gray, and as the organ played the victors, they laid Woody Hayes away. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue, and welcome to our Michigan Game Day show for this week. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. With me today is beat writer Austin Meek from The Athletic. Before we hear from him, a few thoughts from Nebraska interim head coach Mickey Joseph from his Tuesday presser. Coach Joseph was asked if Blake Corum was one of the best backs he's seen this year.
No, he's a really good player. He's probably one of the top backs in the country. I think he's getting Heisman votes right now. But if you watch the film, he runs low to the ground. He runs with violence, and then he has a really good burst. So when he sees it, and he busts through the hole. But he's a really good football player.
One of the beat writers asked Coach, how do you prepare for a team like Michigan?
Well, you continue to motivate them and talk to them about their good place and talk to them about playing 60 minutes. We didn't play 60 minutes this past game. And talk to them that we got to compliment each the offense and defense and special teams. We got to work together, and that we're going to do a better job as a coaching staff of working together this week, trying to get them to be successful.
Coach said when he watches film on Michigan, he is very impressed.
Well, they're a very talented football team. You see talent across the board. You see talent when they put their twos out there. It's a very talented 85 scholarship group, and I think they're probably the best team that we're going to face this year for as talent-wise. But they're well coached. You know, Harbaugh does a really good job. They're well coached. They're a tough team. They do a lot in the run game. They do a lot on defense. And they got a high football IQ football team, and they're an older football team. So you're dealing with a really good, solid football team this week.
He also shared his thoughts on Jim Harbaugh.
Well, I think he's done a great job. You know, he was a really good quarterback in the league, and he's a really good football coach. His brother's a really good football coach in the Ravens. My brother Vance knows his brother. So it's something like my family. It's a football family. He does a really good job. I had a chance to meet him in Birmingham, Alabama, when I was at LSU. He was a great guy to talk to, but he's got a really strong football team, and it's because he's a really good football coach, and he's real organized, and he preaches toughness, and they're tough. You can watch it on film. They're a tough football team.
My guest today says Nebraska is a hard team to figure out. They have plenty of talent and can play with anyone in this league, but for stretches. They just can't seem to put together a full 60 minutes of football. Up next is the outstanding beat writer Austin Meek from The Athletic. So stay with us. Joining us on our game day segment today is beat writer Austin Meek from The Athletic. Great to have you back with us, Austin.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Well, a lot going on, as we know, in college football right now. Tuesday night's news, the college football playoff poll was released. Michigan is number 3. Any surprises anywhere, Austin?
No, I think the only question for me was whether Michigan would move up ahead of Ohio State. The committee chairman said a week ago that even though Michigan was number 5 a week ago, that there was not much separation between number 2 and number 5 with Michigan and Ohio State. And after Ohio State really struggled with Northwestern, I thought there was a chance that Michigan might even move ahead of the Buckeyes. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter. It looks like, barring something really unexpected, it's going to be number 2 versus number 3 when Michigan and Ohio State play at the end of the year, with the winner definitely in the playoffs and the loser potentially still alive, at least, depending on what happens around the rest of the country. So a lot at stake for both Michigan and Ohio State going into that game.
No, absolutely. So it'll all play out, and really, in every sense of the imagination, Michigan has their fate in their own hands.
Yeah, exactly where they want to be at this point in the season. They laid out going into it what their goals were for this season, to get back to the playoffs, to win the Big Ten again, and ultimately to win a national championship. Those are some really big goals, but all of them are still on the table at this point in the season, and that's really all you can ask for.
Well, Austin, you did a piece the other day in The Athletic with 5 closing thoughts on the Rutgers game, and number 1 was turnovers. And we know Steve Clinkscale's been harping on the backs to be more aggressive on balls and play, get more interceptions. They sure took his coaching to heart on Saturday night, didn't they?
Yeah, it was kind of a long time coming, because it's been a theme for this defense all season that they wanted to force more turnovers, wanted to come down with more interceptions. You wouldn't expect to have 3 in one quarter, but when it rains, it pours sometimes. And Michigan, got things rolling in that third quarter on defense after a really, kind of a strange first half that ended with Rutgers leading Michigan. They needed something to change the momentum, and Michael Barrett provided that. His interception really changed the game, and then another interception by Michael Barrett that goes back for a touchdown, put Michigan firmly in command, and then the third one from Will Johnson really slammed the door. And so that's the kind of thing that Michigan's been looking for all season, is some game-changing plays from that defense. The defense has been really good all year, really sound. The only thing that's been missing is just some of those plays that changed the game. And Michigan had 3 of them in a pretty short span of time against Rutgers in a game where they needed that. And that's a good sign moving forward, because Michigan's going to need that. That's what defense is right now in college football. You're not going to completely shut down the other team most weeks. And so it's all about, can you come up with a play or two to swing the momentum of the game. It was a good sign to see Michigan able to do that against Rutgers.
Well, the red zone issues have been a topic of discussion all season. It wasn't easy on the first 2 scores on Saturday night, but much better efficiency in the red zone, wasn't it, Austin?
Yeah, 6 touchdowns and 7 trips to the red zone. That looks really good on paper. That's what you want to see, especially after a game against Michigan State where Michigan really struggled to get the ball in the end zone when they got down close. Especially on the first 2 red zone possessions, it's pretty obvious that Michigan was not gonna disguise anything, not trying to fool anybody. It was just they were gonna run straight ahead with Blake Corum and get there a yard or 2 at a time if they had to. Jim Harbaugh said that was what he wanted to do. He felt like against Michigan State there were some negative plays in the red zone that really derailed those possessions, and so the emphasis was, hey, just keep moving forward. We don't have to do anything, too complicated. We're just going to run the ball and punch it in. And it took, converting 4th and goal both times to get the ball in the end zone, but they did it. So I think that it was big just from a confidence standpoint to be able to punch the ball in the end zone. And I think that they know that they are going to have to open things up in the future. It's not going to work, every time to just pound the ball straight ahead in the red zone. But at the same time, that was how they were able to do it in this game. And I think just mentally to be able to kind of, get that monkey off their back and be able to, show that they can convert in the red zone was nice from a confidence standpoint, and hopefully, will open some things up moving forward.
Well, the offense was just missing something in that first half, but as you said, what got it going in the third quarter, along with the defense, was emptying that backfield early in the third quarter and getting the ball to Donovan Edwards in the receiving game. That was really huge, wasn't it?
Yeah, I thought that's really what changed the momentum for the offense, was when they spread things out and they split Donovan Edwards out wide. The first time they did it, it clearly caught Rutgers off guard, and Donovan Edwards ended up being wide open for a big play. And then they went back to it later in the drive, and Donovan beats his guy to the back of the end zone and catches the touchdown. And with how hard it had been to move the ball up to that point, that really was I thought, a turning point in the game. So I think that, that's something that you definitely file away moving forward, is that, if this offense is maybe not in rhythm and needing a spark, that a great way to do that is to use Donovan Edwards as a receiver, because that's one of the things in his game that is really unique, is that there's not a lot of players who can run the ball and catch the ball at the level that Donovan Edwards can. And so, it's a big weapon. And I would, expect to see more of that, because, teams know that Blake Corum, they know what he can do, and they know that he's going to be the focal point of the offense. And even when they know it's coming, it's still hard to take it away. But you also do need to have a changeup, and using Donovan Edwards as a receiver is a really nice changeup, to mix things up, and then you can go back to that running game with Blake Corum and have a little more room to operate.
One of the other thoughts after the game on Saturday was Michigan, as we know, was down quite a few contributors on Saturday. So guys had to step up, which is going to happen in a long season. Jeffrey Percy at left tackle, Will Johnson at corner, both did just that, didn't they, Austin?
Yeah, they really did. As you said, it is a long season. And Michigan, I think, has done a nice job this year of really pacing themselves for the end of the year, because ultimately you have to be at your best that last Saturday of the regular season. And then if you get a chance to play for the Big Ten championship, you want to be at your best in that game. And then whatever comes after that, if it's college football playoff, one game and maybe even two. So you're going to have weeks in the season when you're down some starters, when guys need another week to rest and recover or whatever. And that's when your depth really becomes important. And I thought it was notable that this is one of those weeks when Michigan was down a few starters, and we saw whether it was Jeff Percy at left tackle, Will Johnson, as you mentioned, at receiver with Roman Wilson not playing. We saw Tyler Morris step in and make a couple plays. It's good to see. You need to develop that depth over the course of the season, and you need to know that you can win a game in a week when you don't have everybody at full strength. And if that helps you be at full strength, then later in the season when you really need to be at your best, that's the optimal scenario, is to be able to build your depth throughout the season, give guys their rest when they need it, and then hope that you're as healthy as you can possibly be in your biggest game.
It was another wild and wacky day around college football with a lot of upsets, teams struggling against lesser opponents. Look at Ohio State at Northwestern. Of course, the weather played a factor in that. Michigan avoided that, though, even after a really sloppy, sort of uninspired start. And in a long season, you're going to have games like that, but finding a way to come back and finish strong is really key, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty rare that any team is going to go through a 12-game season without having at least 1 or 2 weeks when you just don't have your fastball. We saw that from Ohio State against Northwestern, and the weather conditions there were really bad, and it didn't look like the Ohio State team that we're used to seeing. And ultimately, they found a way to win, even though it wasn't pretty. And Michigan was sort of in the same boat, at least in the first half. Had some uncharacteristic mistakes on special teams. Don't often see Michigan miss 2 field goals and have a punt block in one half. The offense was not in a great rhythm. And so it was really looking like one of those games where Michigan was just going to have to survive it. And I thought it was significant that the way it ended up looking at the final score, 52-17, you'd never know that was a game where Michigan, for a half, really looked out of sorts. And that's what you have to do if you aspire to be a great team. Is you have to find ways to win on the games where maybe you're not playing your best. And if you find a way to win convincingly the way Michigan did, then that's even better. So I thought it was notable the way Michigan really took control in that second half and made it look like the first half struggles never happened. I thought that was big for Michigan.
Well, some observers, including a lot of Michigan fans that I hear from, thought J.J. McCarthy's performance was, so-so. He still did a lot of good things, and, expectations are so high for him. But he's a sophomore, and you're going to get some of these kind of games from him, aren't you, Austin?
Yeah, I think that maybe the expectations for J.J. McCarthy were a little bit inflated based on the way he played early in the season against teams that weren't at the level of the competition that he's facing now. As great as J.J. McCarthy was against Hawaii and UConn, it's hard. You can't be much better than that, right? I think Jim Harbaugh said it, that was basically flawless. And so no quarterback is going to play that way over the course of a whole season, and especially as the competition gets tougher. I think we knew, that there was going to be an adjustment for J.J. McCarthy, and I think he's in that process now of finding his level, of the kind of quarterback he's going to be against the better teams that he's going to face. He's not going to go out there and throw for 300 yards every game. That's not the offense that Michigan runs, and that's not what he's being asked to do. Really, I think the goal for J.J. McCarthy is to take care of the ball, to hit the throws when they're open, to facilitate the offense. It's a lot like what Cade McNamara did last year, I think, with the added dimension of, J.J. McCarthy is more of a playmaker. And so you want to see his natural playmaking come to the forefront at times when it's needed, while also seeing him manage the game when Michigan's just trying to, methodically move the ball. And I think on the latter, he's done a really nice job of that this year. He's avoided the mistakes. He's kept the offense moving forward. And I think the last piece that we're just waiting to fall into place for him is hitting some of those big plays when they're there. He had the throw to Andrell Anthony that if the ball just has a little bit more air under it, that's probably a touchdown. And we've seen it be really close on a couple of those this season. And he's been really consistent in saying, that is going to come. He's going to get the timing and the rhythm to hit those big plays eventually. And when that happens, then I think we're going to see Michigan's offense really, become what the Wolverines have been saying it can be. They've said all season that they're making progress, but they're not there yet. And I think we're just waiting for those last couple pieces to fall into place.
Circling back to the red zone concerns, Austin, even though Michigan scored touchdowns on Saturday, some folks are still worried we're not utilizing the receivers enough down there in the red zone. After 9 games, do you think the staff is basically realizing or saying we don't have that jump ball or a go up and get it receiver to utilize right now?
Well, there's definitely not a guy in that receiving core like a Nico Collins, who you knew that if the ball was anywhere close, anywhere catchable, you could throw it up to him and he was going to come down with it. And that's not necessarily the type of receiving core that Michigan has this season. I think a lot of us were really, really high on this receiving group going into the year. And I think that for the most part, that group has played well. But I think that we have seen that, it's a group that just has different strengths and weaknesses. And there's, guys in that group who are really good running after the catch. Ronnie Bell is great at, finding space and getting open and then getting extra yards after the catch. But there is not a guy, to your point, who you just throw it up to in the red zone and know that he's going to come down with it, which means that you just have to, you have to find a different way to get the ball in the end zone. Maybe that's the quarterback run game. Maybe it's utilizing the tight ends. We've seen Michigan try all of that in the red zone. And I think there still are ways to get the wide receivers a little more involved. in the red zone, but you know that there are just some things that you can't do. And it seems like this coaching staff is still in the process of figuring out what's really the bread and butter in the red zone. What do you go to when when it's third down in the red zone and you need to make a play? Is it Luke Schoonmaker? Is it J.J. McCarthy's legs? Is it Blake Corum? Maybe in a different way than like the jet sweep that they ran against Michigan State for a touchdown. There's different things they can do, but it still feels like they're trying to figure out exactly what their bread and butter is in the red zone. What's your go-to when you gotta punch it in. I'm not sure they've quite figured that out yet.
Well, my final thought on Saturday's game was that defense. I mean, we have 3 games left, Austin, but as a unit right now, this year's defense is getting better each week. And for me, anyway, it is. I think it's time to say this defense is really, really good. And what are your thoughts on their play and their progress right now?
I think that they have really backed up what they said going into the season, because there was so much concern going into the year about how they would replace those NFL draft picks that they lost from last year's defense. And there was some concern that, those were the guys that really made it go last year. And if you take them away, there was concern that there would be a big drop-off for Michigan this year. And I think that they've really definitively answered that question and shown that this defense is every bit as good as last year's defense, if not better. And they've done that really with a collective effort, as they said going into it, that it was not going to be a defense with a bunch of stars, a bunch of individual players who we looked at as being, head and shoulders above the others. It was going to be just a really across the board collective effort, and that's what it's been. And I'm ready to say that I think that this defense is every bit as good as last year, if not better. Obviously, they've got to back it up against the best teams that they're going to play. But I feel really confident about this defense and about, Jesse Minter's ability to game plan and to make adjustments. It's been really impressive, especially in the second half of a lot of these games, to see the way Michigan really has worn down the other team with its depth and with its ability to adjust and take away things that teams are doing. So I think that this defense really is hitting its stride coming into the games where the defense is going to have to be at its best.
Well, some of my listener emails this week were on special teams, and I rarely, if ever, get any email on special teams. And, of course, we had the punt block and 2 missed field goals. Now, the punt protection, we know that can be fixed. And Moody's misses, they really were from a long distance, but I don't see any concerns with the special teams. Do you, Austin?
No, I'm not going to worry about Michigan special teams. There's a track record there of being one of the best in the country. Obviously, there are some things to fix. Give some credit to Rutgers. Max Melton, who blocked that punt, I believe that was his 3rd block of the season. So that's something that Rutgers does really well. And to have that show up in that game, I guess the good news is, hey, you won the game easily and you identified something to fix. Because you don't want that to happen in a game where a play like that could be the difference between winning and losing. So I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about Jake Moody, although, I think that sometimes it's easy to take Jake Moody for granted. Sometimes it's easy to say, like, well, you'd like to score a touchdown, but hey, Jake Moody's automatic, so if we don't score a touchdown, at least we got 3 points. Maybe that was a little bit of a reminder that you can't take that for granted, and it's really good to figure out how to get the ball in the end zone. Because Jake Moody is human. He's not going to make all of them, even though you expect him to make most of them. But overall, not worried about it. Nice to have an easy win on a night when your special teams didn't play up to their usual standard, but I do expect Michigan to get that fixed.
Okay, so Nebraska visits the Big House on Saturday. It's been a topsy-turvy year for them, and their starting quarterback might be out. I haven't really heard if they've made a decision yet, and they're 3-6. When you watch this team on tape, though, you see that they are capable of playing some pretty good football for stretches, aren't they, Austin?
Yeah, Nebraska's just, over the last 2 years, it's been the hardest team to figure out in the Big Ten, I think, because you look at that team and you see that they have the potential to play with anybody. And Michigan found that out last year. That game in Lincoln last year was one of the toughest games that Michigan played in the regular season, even though Nebraska didn't end up having a good year. And then this year, the wheels really have just come off. They move on from Scott Frost very early in the season and bring in the interim coach. And, they've had some moments this year, even with everything that's gone on when they've been competitive, but they just clearly, are not able to sustain that for the course of even a full game. And, you wouldn't expect that to change this week, especially as you mentioned, Casey Thompson. The latest I've seen is that it's very doubtful that he'll play. So Nebraska is probably going in with a backup quarterback into the big house, which is not a great recipe for success. And I think for Michigan, it's just a matter of, recognizing that this Nebraska team is capable of, on a given day, putting a scare into somebody because they've shown that, but also realizing that, kind of like the Rutgers game, if there's a point in the game where it's not going Michigan's way, keep doing what you're doing, because that's probably going to be enough. You don't have to panic if things aren't going your way in a moment, because over the course of a full game, I would expect Michigan to demonstrate that it's clearly the better team.
Well, final question before we let you get away, Austin. An attorney representing unnamed Michigan State football player, I think is how it read, David Diamond, that's the attorney's name, and he's an MSU alum too. He's saying the Spartan players involved in the tunnel fight were responding to the actions of a Michigan player. I mean, this does not sound like an incident that is going to have any quick resolution, does it?
I certainly expect that we have not heard the last on this. When Jim Harbaugh was asked about it earlier this week, he said that he expected the police investigation to wrap up very soon. So I would expect resolution of some sort to come in the pretty near future. And I think that, really we need to see the police report. That is going to provide probably some answers to a lot of the questions that are coming up right now, because what we've seen so far is just, the videos obviously that everybody's seen on social media that show, certainly a part of that incident that paints a pretty clear picture. Maybe there will be more information that comes out in the police report, without more evidence. I'm hesitant to, necessarily believe everything that's put out there. But I think, to your point, Michigan, I think, has kind of, moved on from that as well as they can, knowing that there's still some loose ends that need to be tied up. It certainly was a big distraction and something that, really cast a shadow over that Michigan State game. So I think for everybody, for Michigan State, for everybody involved, it'll be nice to have some resolution once the police investigation is done, and then hopefully everybody will be able to move on.
Absolutely. Here with us today on our Michigan Game Day segment has been beat writer Austin Meek from The Athletic. Austin, always a pleasure having you on this show. We thank you for your time, and we look forward to that next visit.
Thank you, Mike. Enjoyed it.
On Quick Hits today, no injury updates from Jim or staff this week, so we'll wait and see who's on the field Saturday. There was a report midweek that Caden McNamara was having leg surgery. No details on what exactly the situation was or what his future holds. Here are a few game day notes of interest. Michigan leads the series with 6 wins against 4 losses, and there has been 1 tie. The first meeting was on October 21st of 1905 here in Ann Arbor. Michigan won 31-0. Last year was a barn burner down in Lincoln on October 9th. It was a night game and went right down to the wire. We prevailed 32-29. Interim head coach Mickey Joseph took over earlier this season when Scott Frost was fired. Last year, the Huskers ended a frustrating season with a 3-9 record. All 9 losses were by less than 7 points. Their last bowl appearance was in the 2016 Music City Bowl. They fell 38-24 against Tennessee. They are 3-6 heading into this weekend's action. The weatherman says, at least right now, that Saturday's weather conditions will be what you might expect in mid-November, a chance of rain and snow showers after 1 p.m. Mostly cloudy with a high near 43 degrees, which means it should be downright chilly for this 3:30 p.m. kickoff, so if you're heading to the game, dress up warm. We have 2 games left at home and 1 down in Ohio in 3 weeks, and our future is in our own hands, and you can't ask for more at this time of the year. All we need to do is win, which is easier said than done, and then it's on to Indy. That starts with taking care of business against a Nebraska team that does have talent, and they can be pesky, so we just have to take care of business. Next week, we close out the home portion of our schedule with a visit from the vastly improved Fighting Illini. It will be a big test for us just a week before that trip to Columbus. My scheduled guest on our Visitors Edition will be Illini radio play-by-play voice Brian Barnhart. Then on our Michigan Game Day show, we'll be joined by Chris Ballas from the Wolverine. So make sure you come back next week. That will do it for now. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Have a great Wolverine weekend, everyone. Think victory, beat Nebraska. Until we meet again, take care, and as always, go blue. Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!